Attention! Attention!
Following message is being transmitted at the request of civil authorities within the state of Florida. A local area emergency has been issued for Nassau and Duval counties, active immediately and until further notice. At around 12:58 p.m. a large explosion was reported to have occurred in a rural area of Nassau County, Florida. It is believed that the explosion happened somewhere along County Road 108, specifically between the towns of Evergreen and Hilliard. All residents are being urged to remain indoors until the morning, as search and rescue crews will be out looking for stranded motorists before dawn. It is unknown if the source of this explosion was man-made or natural. Residents as far south as Jacksonville reported seeing a bright glowing fireball just minutes before the explosion rocked the area. It is unlikely that this explosion caused any casualties, but moderate damage to buildings can't be expected. Local news stations will continue to provide further coverage as new information becomes available. Repeating, a local area emergency has been issued for Nassau and Duval counties, active immediately and until further notice.
The following message is being transmitted at the request of the National Weather Service office in Jacksonville, Florida. A fire warning has been issued for Nassau County, active immediately and until further notice. At around 1 a.m. local time, a large explosion was reported in a densely wooded area within Nassau County. Regardless of what object caused the explosion, there have been reports of a brush fire coming in from those driving along County Road 108. The location of the brush fire is about 6 miles to the east of the town of Hilliard. Fire crews are currently en route to extinguish the fire. This fire is burning in a rural area with no known people living around it, so the risk to your health and safety is relatively low. However, conditions can change quickly when it comes to brush fires. For the time being, it is advised that you remain off of County Road 108 until the fire has been extinguished. The National Weather Service will continue to monitor the situation and will broadcast updates as warranted.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Bold, lead news anchor and meteorologist for First Coast Weather and News. The First Coast had a very interesting morning. Let's talk about it. Sometime around 1 a.m. local time, a large explosion happened in the forest along County Road 108 in Nassau County. A fireball was seen in the air just minutes before the explosion, and the sound wave from the blast was heard as far south as Orlando. So what happened? Was it a meteorite impact? Well, the tricky part is, we don't know. This is where the story gets incredibly interesting. After emergency crews finished cleaning up the scene, they found a smoldering crater surrounded by at least 3 layers of trees extending outwards from it. It looked as if a bomb was dropped in the middle of the forest. But here's the craziest part, there was nothing in the crater. So, what caused the explosion? A piece of military equipment, an extremely large firework, a government secret weapon? Who knows? If anyone has tips that could help us get to the bottom of this story, please contact First Coast Weather and News. We would love to hear what you have to say. For our next story, assessing the damage caused by this morning's brush fire in Nassau County.
Following is a civil emergency message, which is being transmitted at the request of the Florida Department of Public Safety. Earlier this morning, a large explosion occurred 6 miles outside of the village of Hilliard, Florida. The source of this explosion is unknown, as it occurred in the middle of the night, and in the middle of a forest. The explosion caused a brush fire that is still ongoing as of the issuing of this alert. The state government of Florida is asking residents to remain vigilant for any suspicious activity in the area. If you have any information or potential leads on the cause behind the explosion off of Route 108, please contact your local sheriff's office non-emergency line.
Good morning, everyone. My name is James Bold, lead meteorologist and news anchor of First Coast Weather and News. We have quite the show planned today, as today we have a special guest. Arthur Palmer, a Nassau County resident, has been studying military and weapons technology for the past 10 years. He lives over in the Hilliard neighborhood and was in the area when a large explosion rocked the First Coast 2 nights ago. He claims that he has found the cause behind said explosion and is here to reveal it to the world now. Are you ready, Mr. Arthur?
As ready as I'll ever be, James.
Why do you say that?
You know how whistleblowers are treated by our government.
That is true. Are you willing to accept the consequences of revealing the truth to the world?
Absolutely.
That's what we like to hear now. The floor is yours. What exactly do you think is going on here in Florida?
Well, James, to put it quite simply, I think I have a piece of alien technology which crash-landed on the First Coast. And in fact, I have it right here.
Wait, what? How the hell did you even get a hold of that?
It just so happened to land near my property. The perks of living out in the sticks, huh?
You can say that again. So, what is it? Because to me it just looks like a metal sphere.
Well, these things don't have an official name, because they're supposedly of extraterrestrial origin. We don't even know what these things do. As far as I am aware, there has only ever been one other case of these objects being found, and it actually happened here on the First Coast as well.
Really? I'm a little rusty on my local urban legend. Can you explain?
For sure. Back on March 27, 1974, a local Floridian family by the name of the Betts were investigating a small brush fire on their property on St. George's Island. At the source of the fire, they found a strange metal sphere with some odd properties to it. Reportedly, the sphere was able to move on its own and reacted to numerous forms of energy, such as sound waves and the light from the sun. Eventually, the family became somewhat of local celebrities, which brought the attention of the authorities.
It's never good when the authorities get involved.
No, it's not, James. The United States Navy convinced the Betts to let them do some testing on the orb, under the conditions that it would not be tampered with or opened. When the sphere was returned to the Betts, well, of course they tampered with it. The sphere felt noticeably lighter, and incision lines were seen on the outside of the sphere. It is unknown what exactly was inside the Betts sphere, but there are multiple theories. Some people think it was part of an alien spaceship, maybe a power source. With its ability to gather energy from the environment, it could have made for a permanently renewable energy source for a craft. A bit darker, some have suggested that the sphere is some type of large explosive, or even a nuclear device, made out of a material not known to our world.
While that is all very interesting, I am still skeptical. What do the professionals have to say about the Betts sphere?
Funny you should ask that. In the past 4 decades since the incident, the consensus on what the object could be has changed quite a bit. And according to most scientists now, the Betts sphere is a ball check valve for industrial machinery.
That seems reasonable enough, but how did a heavy metal ball end up smoldering in a Floridian forest like that?
Well, here's the kicker. The story goes that an artist from New Mexico was collecting scrap metal while traveling the country, and in Easter of 1971, he was in the Jacksonville area, and supposedly the ball rolled off of his Volkswagen van, where it remained in the forest for around 3 years, even though the ball was apparently found deeper into the brush of the woods and not immediately along the road like you would expect.
And it was on fire when it was found too. So it just sat there for 3 years doing nothing, then randomly decided to burst into flames. That doesn't really sound like something I would want being used in industrial machinery.
Right. It all seems a little fishy. Don't get me wrong, I still have some questions about this myself, but at the end of the day, this is an absolutely compelling story.
That it is, Arthur. So, what now? By the way you're putting it, it seems almost as if what happened on the First Coast 40 years ago is occurring again. I have to wonder, was it deliberate? If it is aliens, are they trying to destroy us? Was it just an accident? Who's to say? Thank you for coming on the show today, Arthur. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you as well, James. Not many people are willing to listen to stories like mine.
Of course, I always want to hear an individual story, no matter how crazy it may sound on the surface. I've gotten some of my best broadcasts of this show that way. To be honest with you, Arthur, I'm unsure what to believe myself. Really, I can go either way right now. If there's one thing for certain, this is just one more example of how our world is not always exactly what it seems. For our next story, The National Hurricane Center predicts an above-average hurricane season for the Atlantic Basin.
The following message is being transmitted at the request of the Nassau County Sheriff's Office. A law enforcement warning has been issued for the town of Callahan, Florida, active immediately and until further notice. At 3:25 p.m. local time, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office deputies attempted to carry out a raid on a suspected drug lab located along Dixie Avenue in southern Callahan. They were met with some armed resistance, but the scene has since calmed down. Residents in the Callahan area are being urged to remain indoors until an all-clear message has been given. Thank you for your cooperation. It has been greatly appreciated. Following the conclusion of this alert, tune to your local news station for further information.
Hello everyone, my name is James Bold, lead news anchor and meteorologist for First Coast Weather and News. I wanted to broadcast briefly out of our usual schedule for a second to tell y'all something. Earlier we had a man on the show who claimed to have some sort of mysterious sphere that could harness energy. He was supposed to come on to the show, but he hasn't called or anything. He told me that if he did not show up, that I need to get away from Jacksonville as fast as possible. He would not tell me why, but he seemed serious. If I had to guess, maybe he assumes the government would be coming after me. I highly doubt that, but what if it had something to do with the sphere? Did that man know more about it than he let on? Personally, I don't know what to think of the situation. For now, we will remain in Jacksonville. I do not fear the law, and I know me and my crew did nothing wrong. For our next story, the National Weather Service warns of a scorching weekend ahead.
Following message is being transmitted at the request of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. A law enforcement warning has been issued for the community of Mayport, active immediately and until further notice. At 2:24 a.m. local time, forces at Naval Station Mayport reported there had been a breach in security on base. The identity of said intruder is currently unknown. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is currently en route to Mayport and is expected to arrive in around 20 minutes. The suspect was said to be wearing all black clothes and seemed to be partially equipped with military equipment, such as Kevlar plates and high-caliber rifles. All residents within the neighborhood of Mayport are being urged to shelter in place immediately. Do not leave your place of refuge until an all-clear message is given. Following the conclusion of this alert, tune to your local news station for further information.
The following message is being transmitted at the request of the United States Geological Survey and is being relayed through the National Weather Service. An earthquake warning has been issued for the First Coast region of Florida, active immediately and until further notice. At 2:52 a.m. local time, a magnitude 6.9 earthquake was detected, with its epicenter being located near the town of Mayport, Florida. This is a particularly dangerous and life-threatening situation. Shaking has been reported up to 60 miles away from the epicenter. Extreme coastal flooding is expected along the east coasts of Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Locally, the disturbance of the St. Johns River will likely cause massive flooding in all bordering counties. This includes the counties of Duval, Clay, St. Johns, Putnam, Marion, Volusia, and Lake. All residents within 2 miles of the St. Johns River are being urged to evacuate away to higher ground immediately. Widespread power outages are expected for most of the First Coast. Please contact emergency services only in life-threatening situations. Following the conclusion of this alert, tune to your local news station for further information.
The following message is being transmitted at the request of the state government of Florida. A mandatory evacuation order has been issued for the entire first coast of Florida and Georgia. Around 25 minutes ago, continuous earthquakes began to occur from the Mayport area in eastern Duval County. These earthquakes have varied in intensity from 4.1 to 7.2 on the Richter scale. It is believed that something has gone terribly wrong at Naval Station Mayport. All residents within a 20-mile radius are being urged to evacuate away from the Naval Station Mayport immediately. Get as far away from Naval Station Mayport as possible. Your life Your regularly scheduled programming has been suspended to transmit this important national message. The United States is facing a potentially catastrophic nuclear event. Please stand by for further information. The following message is being issued on the behalf of the President of the United States of America. Please stand by. At around 2:55 a.m. Eastern Time, a massive explosion occurred on the first coast region of Florida, following a series of major earthquakes. The source of the explosion is currently unknown, but it likely isn't man-made. Damage has been reported upwards of 40 miles outward from the site of the explosion. A large majority of the city of Jacksonville, a city of nearly 1 million people, sustained moderate damage. There is a potential risk of tsunamis up the eastern coast of the United States over the next few hours. Scientists have detected trace amounts of radiation in the atmosphere upwards of 50 miles away from the blast site. Due to the northeasterly trend in the jet stream, any radiation or ejecta from the explosion will be drifting northeastward over the coming days. For more information, please consult the United States government website. This has been a national emergency message. Thank you for your time.
Your current time is 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You're listening to NO Radio, the voice of the National Weather Service. Here are your conditions from around the area. In Charleston, it is currently 57 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. The following message is being transmitted at the request of the state government of South Carolina and is being relayed through the National Weather Service. A radiological hazard warning has been issued for the entire state of South Carolina, active immediately and until further notice. Earlier this morning, a large nuclear device was detonated at Naval Station Mayport in the city of Jacksonville, Florida. It is unknown if the detonation of the nuclear device was deliberate or not. Over the next couple of hours, it is expected that a large cloud of radiation will cross over the state of South Carolina as a result of this explosion. The heaviest concentration of dangerous radiation will be in the eastern portion of the state, especially along the coast. This cloud will likely continue to drift northeastward through the rest of the Carolinas and into Virginia. If you decide to evacuate as far to the west as possible. States expected to be heavily impacted by the radiation cloud include, but are not limited to, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and New York. This is an extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation. If you decide to shelter in place, ensure you have enough supplies to last you at least 5 days. For more information, please consult the United States government website.
Your regularly scheduled programming has been suspended to transmit this important national message. Please stand by. Momentarily, the President of the United States will address the nation. The United States is currently undergoing a national emergency. For more information, please stand by.
My fellow Americans, today I stand here before you, unfortunately with some heartbreaking and truly devastating news. As of this moment, Millions of Americans are currently fighting for their lives, while millions more are mourning. At around 3 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, an explosion the likes of which we have never seen on Earth occurred along the First Coast region of Florida. The source of this explosion is currently unknown, but due to the observed threat of fallout, it seems to be nuclear in nature. As of now, we do not believe that this was an attack from any foreign adversary. At the same time, the intelligence community is unsure if this explosion was caused by a so-called broken arrow incident or a lost nuclear weapon. No known nuclear weapons have ever been lost around the Jacksonville area. Scientists currently estimate the explosion had a yield of anywhere between 75 to 100 megatons, which is much larger than anything humanity has ever detonated on its own volition. The blast wave scorched tens of thousands of square miles, leaving likely well over 1 million people dead. Much of northeast Florida and southeastern Georgia are little more than scorched earth now. Search and rescue efforts have been massively inhibited by the extraordinarily high levels of radiation within the initial blast zone. Again, I want to reiterate, whatever device triggered this explosion is something that we have never seen on this planet before. It is all but guaranteed that the death toll has already exceeded 1 million from this catastrophe, making it the deadliest event in the history of the United States. Since the recent explosion was a nuclear one, it is expected that heavy amounts of fallout will drift up the eastern seaboard over the coming days. States such as Georgia, the Carolinas, the Virginias, and more can expect to see heavy doses of radiation. Shelter-in-place orders may be issued for areas downwind of the explosion as conditions warrant. I wish I had an explanation to offer. The United States government has hidden a lot of things from its citizens over the years, but even this is something completely out of our league. Regardless of the seemingly insurmountable circumstances, as president, I promise to do everything in my power to help those affected by this disaster recover. It's going to be a long road, but we will get there. Thank you for your time, and please stay safe out there.
This has been a national emergency message. Thank you for your time.